Wasn't that a great welcome from some of the members of our youth group who meet by Zoom on Sunday night? We are all welcome. Welcome to be on holy ground. We'll find out more about that as we listen to the Bible reading that some of the members of the youth group are going to bring to us now.
Today's reading is from Exodus 3, 1-5, Moses and the burning bush.
Now Moses was tending to the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God.
There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire. It did not burn up.
So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up.
When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called for him from the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am.
Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. These are the words of the Lord.
Thanks
be to God.
Where do you most feel as though you're on holy ground? Some places you really feel the presence of God more than others, don't you? I remember Chris and I standing at the base of Uluru thinking, now we understand why they said this is a sacred place. I think especially that day because it had been raining and we saw the water running down the rock. Or maybe when we were on the holy island of Iona off the west coast of Scotland. It wasn't so much being in the abbey, but just on the island itself. Moses discovered that he was in a holy place, in a most unlikely place. He'd been wandering through the wilderness, chasing his father-in-law's sheep and goats. And then his attention was drawn to a bush that was burning, and yet not burning up, not being consumed. The bush wasn't actually the important thing. God was actually trying to get his attention. It was really important that God got Moses' attention because he had something terribly important for Moses to do. He said to Moses almost, now that I've got your attention, here's what I need you to do. I want you to lead my people Israel out of slavery in Egypt back to a promised land. Now Moses thought this was way, way beyond him. He wasn't a leader at all. So he really needed this feeling of being in a special place with God to hear this message for him. So there are these special places sometimes, and yet one of the great messages of the Bible is that this whole earth is a holy place. That's where the Bible starts. Right back at the beginning of Genesis, the whole point is to say the heaven, the earth, the skies, and everything that's in it, these are created by God, and they are very good. So wherever you are, whether you're in your garden, wherever you are, that's God's place, God's holy place as well. And in all these places, we can feel God's presence if we take time enough to open our eyes. Now sure, there are some times when we feel God's special presence, but maybe that's because God needs to get our attention for something we need to do. I think when we do an acknowledgement of country at the beginning of public events, or maybe at the start of a church service, we're actually acknowledging this. What we're really saying is, like the first peoples of this land who acknowledged that this land was a gift to them, a sacred place, we're saying this place on which we stand was created by God and then entrusted to the first peoples of this land. And now, first and second peoples together, we're responsible for it, for caring for it. You see, the next part of Genesis that goes on to is not just that God created the world, but he created human beings to care for this world and to help it to be fruitful. That's our task. This is the world, the holy place that we've been entrusted. And that's our role, to care for this world. Now, there's a show on television at the moment about Planet A and saying there's no Planet B. Well, the reason there's no Planet B is because this is the planet that God has entrusted to us, human beings. And you might think that's a huge risk by God. I think it is too. Because, human beings, you and me and everyone else, are imperfect things. Well, that's acknowledged in the first few chapters of Genesis too, isn't it? The story about Adam and Eve, which is really a story about man and woman, and saying, even though we're created for a relationship with God, even though we're created to care for this world, often we fail at that. But what doesn't fail is God's continuing love for us. And so the whole rest of the Bible is about how God draws us back into a relationship with God and how God enlists us in caring for this world so that this world will become the kingdom of God, a kingdom of justice, love and peace. So wherever you are, realise this is holy ground. Whether you're in your garden looking at a tiny flower, whether you're with a whole lot of people, actually that's pretty unlikely at the moment, isn't it? Mostly we're just stuck at home. But in our home or our garden, wherever we are, that's God's place. But more than that, God is saying that every person is special. In every person we can encounter God, and to every person we can share God's love. So this is a holy place, and we have a holy task to do, to share God's love with all who we meet. Thanks for being with us today. So while the whole earth, God's earth, is holy ground, there are some special places which will be a thin place for you that you can really feel the presence of God. Look around, find them, and be open to God's presence this week.